Good evening. I'm Tim Wright. I'm the pastor of Community of Grace Lutheran Church here in Peoria, Arizona, and I want to welcome you to our Good Friday service here on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. And we're glad to have you with us tonight as we focus in on the death of Jesus. Like any good thriller or any good detective novel, you know that when you get to the end, things start picking up pace as they race to the end of the story. And that's fairly similar with the story of Jesus as he comes into this last week of his life. The story begins on Sunday, what we call Palm Sunday, as Jesus rides into Jerusalem hailed as a king. The next day he enters into the temple and he chases out the money changers and the money lenders. On Tuesday he has another confrontation with the religious leaders. On Wednesday, while he's eating a meal, a woman comes in and pours expensive perfume all over his body as a way of preparing him for his soon coming death. And then on Thursday, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. He shares the Last Supper with them. He is betrayed and arrested. And that brings us to this moment, this day we now call Good Friday.
Very early in the morning, the leading priests, other leaders, and teachers of the religious law, the entire high council, bound Jesus and took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?"
Yes, it is as you say.
Then the leading priests accused him of many crimes, and Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to say something? What about all these charges against you?" But Jesus said nothing, much to Pilate's surprise. Now, it was the governor's custom to release one prisoner each year at Passover time. Anyone the people requested. One of the prisoners at that time was Barabbas, convicted along with others for murder during an insurrection. The mob began to crowd toward Pilate, asking him to release a prisoner as usual. "Should I give you the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked, for he realized by now that the leading priests had arrested Jesus out of envy. But at this point, the leading priests stirred up the mob to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. But if I release Barabbas, Pilate asked them, what should I do with this man you call the King of the Jews? They shouted back, crucify him. Why? Pilate asked. What crime has he committed? But the crowd only roared the louder, crucify him. So Pilate, anxious to please the crowd, released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip, then turned him over to the Roman soldiers to crucify him. The soldiers took him into their headquarters and called out the entire battalion. They dressed him in a purple robe and made a crown of long, sharp thorns and put it on his head. Then they saluted, yelling, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they beat him on the head with a stick, spit on him, and dropped to their knees in mock worship. When they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him again. Then they led him away to be crucified. A man named Simon, who was from Cyrene, was coming in from the country just then, and they forced him to carry Jesus' cross. And they brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means Skull Hill. 2 others, both criminals, were led out to be executed with him. All 3 were crucified there, Jesus on the center cross and the 2 criminals on either side. Jesus said,
Father, forgive these people, because they don't know what they're doing.
And the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. The crowd watched, and the leaders scoffed. He saved others, they said. Let him save himself if he is really God's chosen one, the Messiah. The soldiers mocked him, too, by offering him a drink of sour wine. They called out to him, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." A signboard was nailed to the cross above him with these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself, and us too while you're at it." But the other criminal protested, "Don't you fear God even when you are dying? We deserve to die for our evil deeds, but this man hasn't done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied,
I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise.
Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her,
Woman, he is your son.
And he said to this disciple,
She is your mother.
And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. Then, at that time, Jesus called out with a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,
which means,
my God, why have you forsaken me?
Jesus knew that everything was now finished, and to fulfill the scriptures, he said,
I am thirsty.
A jar of sour wine was sitting there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put it on a hyssop branch, and held it up to his lips. When Jesus had tasted it, he said,
It is finished.
Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. By this time it was noon, and darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. The light from the sun was gone, and suddenly the thick veil hanging in the temple was torn apart. Then Jesus shouted,
"Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands."
And with those words, he breathed his last.